A ver, ahí está el
Ahí está.
micrófono. ¿Me oís ahora? Sí, perfecto. Buenas tardes. Gracias, Rocío. Hola, Yarón. Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias por asistir. Voy a hacer una breve introducción a nuestro invitado de hoy, Yarón Abulafia. Es un diseñador de espectáculos muy reconocido a nivel internacional. Yarón ha diseñado más de 250 espectáculos en teatros alrededor de todo el mundo, teatros de ópera y compañías. Algunas, os puedo decir, ha trabajado para la Deutsche Oper, para la Comic Oper en Berlín, para el Sadler's Wells y la Royal Opera House en Londres, para el Melbourne Arts Center, en China para el Beijing y Shanghai International Dance Center, y compañías tan importantes de danza como el Stad Ballet de Berlín, Netherlands Dance Theater en Holanda, English National Ballet, Rambert Dance Company, el Ballet BC en Vancouver e incluso la Compañía Nacional de Danza, entre otros. Él ha escrito un libro que se llama El arte de la luz en el escenario, The Art of Light on Stage, que es este libro estupendo, que vino a presentar. Él ha presentado este libro alrededor de todo el mundo, ya en 23 países, y una de las veces que presentó el libro le invitamos desde la asociación hace unos años para presentarlo y él se desplazó muy amablemente a Madrid y desde entonces le nombramos socio invitado. Yarón Abulafia ha sido presentado como uno de los 15 embajadores de la Cuadrienal de Escenografía y Diseño Teatral de Praga, siendo miembro del jurado en la edición de 2019 y también en el World Stage Design de 2013. Y ha sido invitado al panel de curaduría internacional del próximo World Stage del 2021 que se desarrollará en Calgary, en Canadá. Bueno, eso es básicamente lo que os puedo contar de Yarón. Si queréis saber más de él, pues estar atentos a lo que nos va a contar o visitar su página yaronabulafia.com. Simplemente comentaros que la charla, como ya bien nos ha dicho Rocío, va a ser en inglés y vamos a contar para la traducción con nuestra traductora titular y amiga María Díaz, que debe andar por ahí. María. Hola, María. Vamos a contar con María para que nos traduzca, ¿vale? La charla de Yarón. En Facebook será en inglés solamente y más adelante editaremos este vídeo para que esté disponible para todo el que quiera verlo con la traducción de María. Y sin más, doy paso a Yarón. Muchas gracias y que lo disfrutéis.
So, Nicolas, thank you so much for this generous introduction. And it's great to be able to share and have a conversation with so many colleagues and friends from around the world. I see already some people here from Spain and other countries in Europe, but also from South America and Mexico. So good morning, good afternoon for everyone. And thanks for coming, especially in these times of uncertainty of COVID. It's great that we can still talk with each other, inspire each other, and maybe change for 1.5 hours, 2 hours, our focus point to what we all love, which is the performing arts and lighting design. I would like to thank to all the people who were involved in organizing this event in Adadi. First, Juan Gomez Cornejo, the president, and Nicolas Fischel, vice president, Ezequiel Nobili, Carlos Torrijos, and Paco Bragado. And let me just share the presentation. We can start right away. So the subject that I would like to discuss today is light dramaturgy and imagination, and to focus on the poetics of lighting. Basically, in the last couple of decades already, and maybe more from contemporary dance, but it's gradually coming more into theater, opera, and other genres. We see that light turns to become scenography. And I say the bulbs are blooming, the bulbs like the seeds of flowers. So there is a change in the poetic role of light in performance. It used to be the medium to illuminate, to make things perceivable visually, and later to help telling the story. But in contemporary performance, there are a lot of new functions, new possibilities, new potential. And I hope that we will touch upon some of these new trends with the examples that I will share with you today. I would advise to look on the examples through maybe two central ideas. The first is working with light and space in a way that light not only illuminates the objects in the space, but it becomes an object for observation. And it is a generator of an experience by itself. It could be subconscious or conscious input, but the light becomes not only serving or following other media, it becomes something also central at times, sometimes. And I will show some examples that can illustrate it. The other idea that I would like to focus on this talk is creating a visual dramaturgy, not dramaturgy that analyzes the text alone, but a dramaturgy that composes or orchestrates like music of light, by which the light acts as a performer in the space, and it can subconsciously stimulate a bodily or emotional experience, but also trigger more aware conceptual processes while we are watching a performance. So these are the two things that I would maybe suggest to focus on while you see images and hear me talking about the projects and how was the creative process and what actually led to make an image that looks in a particular way and so on. So this is some prologue. I would like to just a second, it's not moving. So yes. So light is my tool to spark imagination with. Light needs to, in my opinion, it needs to tell its own story. And this story of light needs to be beyond illumination. And it is something that I feel truly when I think about light in design. I think that light is really alive and has an active presence that coexists in synergy, in relationship with space and with the physical material in the space, and with the human performers and the text, and with the tempo of the performance, although the light can definitely create its own tempo, not necessarily support the tempo of the what we have, but slow things down or accelerate, make things even full more of tension. It has a kind of musicality, and it can completely change the experience of all things. This is something that it's very powerful in the medium of light. That and we all know when we come to the first lighting rehearsal how a situation could be quite sensitive, because it's the first time that we see what is happening, and sometimes it's like how we imagined, and sometimes it's a bit different than what we imagined. But for the other colleagues, the other creative members of the team, it's really the first time that they see also how their work looks, or potentially able to look like. So it's really offering a perspective, yeah, and the experience of everything in the space really depends on light. Light can also trigger our mind and let it drift towards the most personal and creative places. In this example, in this photo, it's from a show called Red Curtain in Shanghai Dance Theater. In the moment that this photo was taken, the space was purely a white box, and we start with a white space and gradually turns into this, and it becomes a very emotional moment. It's just a second. I believe that light can be used to move theater spectators in such an emotional intensity that nothing else in a performance can do. And I will elaborate on this later in the talk. And in life and in performance, light affects the way we feel towards what exists around us. It affects sometimes even in a primal way. Rocio, I'm not sure if there is something that I see. There is a black box at the top of the screen. Do you see everything properly? You see a full photo, or something is wrong?
I see the black square.
You see the black?
Yeah.
I don't know how to get rid of this. Is it now better?
Yeah, now it's better.
Yeah, okay,
It's
thank you so much.
A black rectangle, but we can see it now. Now,
okay,
better.
Yeah, maybe don't keep me as a host, because every time someone is joining to the waiting room, the rectangle comes down from the top of the screen.
Okay, because
maybe just to be able to share a screen, but not to be a host like you.
Okay.
If it's possible, thank you. So light is something that makes a space. It shapes the experience of time, and lighting design is about offering a perspective and changing it constantly. Light creates structures in a performance, and in a way, it helps directing things, not like in a film with a convention of camera work. That's it jumped again, Rocio. But really to not only about attention, but really about how to think about what we see, how to feel about what we see. So there is something very fundamental in lighting design, and this is responsibility, but really also the joy of design. A lot about these ideas and others I have developed in the time of my PhD research at the State University of Groningen, in a PhD research under the supervision of my mentor, promoter, Professor Barend van Heusden, that is a specialist in theory of culture and arts and cognition. I came at the beginning with a master in scenography, lacked a lot of theoretical knowledge about phenomenology and neuroscience and semiotics. And it took us, I think it was about 8 years of research, theoretical research, but very informed by creative work, by practical work of lighting design. And the PhD was called Performing Light. And eventually the research was published by Routledge as The Art of Light on Stage, Lighting in Contemporary Theater. I think that maybe the heart of this research lays in the theoretical framework, which is basically a very useful method for the analysis of the poetics of light. What we see on the right side is a very simple diagram of different, to simplify it, maybe different semiotic functions, or what, maybe in an artistic terms, I would say what the light could be about. Okay, this is something that everyone can actually use in a creative process. When I'm now in front of the stage and I'm trying to start actually making an image, I should, I think, ask what am I actually going to do? It's not just to illuminate the performers and the stage design and the costumes in a flattering way. The light could be about something. The light could be about a narrative, which is a very traditional way of illustrating the story, supporting the illusion of time and space in a fiction. But the more we go up in this diagram, we see that the light becomes more and more liberated from serving texts and more oriented to the creation of light design as a creative, as a more autonomous element. And for example, atmosphere and emotion is thinking about how do we want to manipulate psychologically or subconsciously the spectator. What do we try to evoke, to provoke in the public in a certain moment? A theme or dramatic action will be a kind of abstraction of what in a certain moment, what the text is about. What is the main action in a play? What the premise? What if you make a summary of what the play is about? Yeah, and try to translate it, if you want, into lighting design. How to use light and create motifs that are used repeatedly throughout the performance, and they create connections between moments in the show, and different relationships between the moments. It could be irony, it could be some kind of accumulative experience, emotional experience, something that we carry from the past and we bring it into the present in order to create a kind of emotional impact, and so on and so on. So this is a chapter of 20-something pages just about how to analyze lighting design, not the technicality of it, but the poetics. What is the artistic role of lighting in performance? And then there are 5 following chapters in the book that bring test cases of really masters of contemporary theater, like let's say the earliest one is Robert Wilson, and others like Romeo Castellucci or Heine Goebbels and others. So this is actually a model that can be used by artists, by each one of us in our work on lighting design. So, yes, I hear someone. Yeah. Okay. So this is maybe also going to support some of my examples, because when I create lighting design, I always think, what is the light about, and what am I doing? It's not enough to see what the other artists are doing. It's very important to work in collaboration, but I think that lighting design is a form of art, like stage design, costume design, writing a play, directing, and we have to start the creative process very early as possible, if possible even together. And then to bring ideas that light can create in the performance, maybe in a better way than other media, than other elements. Okay, so let's start. I brought several test cases that will be interesting, I hope, to discuss in this context. The first is a production based on William Shakespeare's The Comedy of Errors. As far as I know, I think it's the very first time that this play was adopted to a dance theater, hardly with any text, mostly with movement. And actually, we had a little bit of text at the beginning and at the end of the production, but it was not the text by William Shakespeare. So this is really a remarkable creative team that I would like to very shortly tell you a little bit about. First of all, it was directed and choreographed by the wonderful Richard Werlock, the artistic director of Ballet Theatre Basel. He is the one who dared to take such a difficult play that is also challenging to do without language, because it's about mixture of identities or confusion of identities. I will not enter too much into the narrative now, but it has two couples of brothers, twins, yeah, from a poor family and from a rich family, and then there are 4 children. The two poor ones are adopted by the rich family, and then there is a storm in the sea, and each parent is split with one twin brother from another couple. So let's say if there was a blonde pair of brothers and ginger brothers, so each parent took one blonde and one ginger. So this is really quite complex to make the story come across in dance, but Richard dared and did it wonderfully. The scenography by Bruce French, who is a fantastic visual artist and stage designer. He's doing, from dance to theater to rock and roll, television, really very inspiring partner to work with. Costume design was done by Catherine Brickhill, that comes more from the fashion industry, but she worked really with Givenchy and with really some of the most creative fashion designers, Alexander McQueen and others. Music was composed and played live by Anthony Jen and Martin Slattery, together with Johnny Tomlinson. They were forming the pop rock group Pulp from Britain, and they played it and sang it and with the Symphonic Orchestra of Basel in a way that I truly tell you, this was, I was never using drugs, but hearing the sound and the singing and the different spaces, that the acoustic spaces of different instruments and electronic sounds and instrumental sounds were in the opera house, this was like an hallucination. This is something I never experienced before. Musical director and conductor was Thomas Herzog from the Basel Symphonic Orchestra, with the wonderful dramaturg Gregor Acuna Paul from Spain, from Seville. Really great collaborator and inspirer. Carina Braunschmidt, actress from Theater Basel, joined this production as the person who is actually pulling strings and causing errors and misidentifications and so on. So with this introduction, the world premiere that was in May 2018, I would like to ask you all to open the PDF file, or Rocio, if you would like to just send the link number 1, and I will meanwhile tell a little bit about the concepts of this production. So let's not click yet on the link, but just find it. It should be or on your chat or on Facebook. It could be on one of the messages below the screen. So the production in Basel was placed in the middle of a huge modern cage. It was a kind of a Greek amphitheater made of mesh, of fences, metal fences and stairs. And you know, the amphitheater that represents civil equality and values of democracy. And theater in Greece, of course, had the role of educating the people to be better citizens, and art in general. Here, in quite a hypocritical way, it turns into a huge cage. And at the background, we also had, you know, the Syracuse, which is the poor country in the original play of Shakespeare, and Ephesus, the country where gold is everywhere, everything is shiny and glamour. We interpreted it in a way to connect it to the crisis of refugees that is still running, still happening. Refugees that come to Europe and many times are facing a closed door. So the task of light with such a huge set of amphitheater placed on the stage facing us, the public, the real public, was to represent all the different locations. Yeah, we have Syracuse, the poor country. We have later a boat. We have the storm in the sea. We have Ephesus in different places, different moments in time. And the space, the scenography, intentionally, I would say, is having very minor changes, physical changes, but lighting needs to transform it. Now, this is not a shortage of means or something. This is intentional, because turning the amphitheater, you know what the amphitheater is, the space of make-believe. Yeah, so it's a theater stage on a theater stage. Then, okay, let's make the magic. Let's transform the space. It could look like with powerful lights coming through the constructions of metal, like a trap of shadows. And this was very powerful image for the storm in the sea. It could be with other light. It can look like gold. It can offer the spectator very quickly, with light changes, different perspectives to look through. Yeah, and I really liked that the same space, the physical space, the constructed amphitheater, is at the same time has this duality of cruelty, of poverty, and at the same time, just with different light, could look so beautiful and gradually changing towards the end of the performance. Let's watch the first film. It's a film that belongs to the creative process. I'm sharing here with you an visual material that the creative team and me were discussing. This is a film about lighting design, about future lighting design. The film was created about 7 or 8 months before we are in the theater, before we are lighting the stage. But it indicates the ideas, the intentions, the color scales, how we characterize possibly every space, and so on. And it's a starting point for a dialogue, for a conversation about lighting 7, 8 months before the premiere. It's about 6 minutes long, but a lot of visuals. So I hope you will be able to follow. There's just a little bit English text at the bottom, but very simple. It can communicate also without the text, I believe. The music, by the way, is original music that was composed specially for the Comedy of Errors in Basel. So I suggest that we all click it now. Yeah, and link number 1. Yes. So I hope that everyone could watch the first link properly. And I would like to just mention some of the ideas that led my creative process with the lighting and the conversation later on with the colleagues. Just a couple of ideas here. Yes. Okay. So I mentioned already this ambiguity, this ambivalence of the poorness, the poverty on one hand, and also the glamorous, the beauty of the space, of the scenography. And I was thinking, what happens if actually we lit this amphitheater, yeah? If we lit this space from the back at the beginning, and we see Syracuse as a place that is very rough, constructions of metal, shadows, and also add some tubes of fluorescent, like what you saw in the photos, the first photos with the children in a cage, with some kind of old-fashioned TL tubes, and characterize Syracuse as a place that is very suppressing, very heavy, and maybe people are even getting out of boxes of cages. And so it's a place that is very violent, is very fragmented visually, and we don't show the walls. We don't show the walls. So the place looks much bigger and deeper than what it is. And only later for Ephesus, the let's say Europe, the rich country, we will lit then only from the front and make it look like gold. And the gold will gradually fade. At the beginning of Ephesus, it's very attractive, it's very rich, it's very saturated, gold, orange, kind of warm gold. And as we progress in the piece in Ephesus, the color is losing intensity, it becomes more and more pale, less and less attractive, less appealing. Yeah, and this was just one, let's say, principle of how to progress with the lighting during the piece. Another idea is coming from casino houses, gambling. So Ephesus, as it was characterized, it was, there was, for example, a character called Dirty Money, and he was throwing golden plaques, golden pieces that were drifting in the air. And then the floor had a lot of these pieces, and as they walk, there is dust of gold. Yeah, this is a place of corruption, and it's very superficial. It's about the money, and there is something there really a lot about property and about facade and so on. So I was thinking from the casino, yeah, we all know that noise, can be a distraction. And what do the casino houses are doing? They are filling you with information, visual information, acoustic information, the bells, the rings of machines, flashes of light. Just the idea, that you are losing track of time, that you are overwhelmed by this richness. Yeah, this was actually something that as a goal. Yeah, at the beginning of Ephesus, this was something we try to achieve. And the last thing before showing some photos is to mix the two worlds. The idea to, for example, when the father comes as a refugee into Ephesus, he's someone that people try to get distant from him. They don't accept him with open arms. He's even like some of them are disgusted by him, or maybe he's smelly, or he's not like them. He's not from their class, and so on. So when the father of the twins, as a refugee, comes into the space, some of the light of Syracuse is coming in, is penetrating into the golden palace. And the Syracuse was characterized with the white light that you saw in the little film, this kind of ice cold white HMI, it's called HMI, gaslight, that mixed, the world, the lower world, which is, in my opinion, not lower at all, but let's say the world, the underground, the suppressed world comes into the world of the rich. So let's see some images, and maybe it gives more body to the words. What you see on the right side is the ensemble of the ballet with Karina in the middle. She starts with a short monologue, beautiful text, Jewish Hasidic text that Gregor, the dramaturg, brought into this production. And I don't have the text here in front of me, but just to give you the idea of what it was about, it was a father that is asking his children, tell me, do you know when the day begins? And the children bring very beautiful poetic answers. I think one of them was, for example, when you see the leaves of the olive tree getting green, and the father says no. And then the children try another example, another answer. Several answers, very opening the imagination. And then the monologues, this monologue stops, and the answer is going to be given at the end of the production. But you see here Zed after the monologue with the ensemble, and the walls at the back, the stairs are getting hardly any lighting. There are tubes. These are LED tubes, but they look like the old-fashioned fluorescents. Some of them are crooked, like diagonal. They're not properly attached. It looks like not very well maintained and not well treated. And she's illuminated by a little soft light just on the from the chest up to the head. She looks, you see on the left photo how the shadow is fading towards the bottom, towards the floor. And in the film that you will see soon, she has a very powerful light coming from the side back. It looks very cinematic, very like almost ghosty. You see here very expressive illumination and shadows on the body, very plastic, very three-dimensional on the left. These are the parents of the twins, the double twins. On the right side, you see a duet that is basically the conception of the children, and behind them, a group of people swinging from side to side as if they are on a boat in the sea. Now we are in Ephesus. So the left photo shows the, this is welcome to Ephesus. This is very monumental. The space looks very impressive, massive, metal, warm metal. And on the right up photo, you see this dust of gold that I mentioned. Dirty money is releasing it, and from the pockets, out of the pockets. Over here, you see on the left photo up, this is the father arriving Ephesus, And you see the cold white light from this opening on the right side of the photo. This is the kind of disharmony that the two worlds, when they are colliding, when they are clashing, yeah, this kind of white light is crossing, you know, from Syracuse to Ephesus. So it's penetrating into and making it feel also very violent, you know, with the shadows and the like a spill of light on the floor and on the opposite wall. And you see also the shadows on the floor, and the performers are also moving there. So they have strong and long shadows on the floor, stretched, very dramatic moment. And this is a very romantic duet of one of the brothers with his wife, and in a very, very clever way, there is a follow-up of scenes that are creating many times contrast, very strong emotional contrast. From this romantic duet, we are moving on to the scene of Andrew in the brothel. Yeah, and this is Andrew, the other blonde brother. Actually, it's like the red light district in Amsterdam. And you see the same lighting tubes that were used to characterize Syracuse, but in white color. Now there are these kind of saturated red that it's representing like a red light district. And there is this kind of ultraviolet light that comes from the floor in the front, inversing the light on the body, because the light coming from opposite angle than what we are used to. We are used to have lighting coming from above, if it is a sunlight or inside architecture. But here this ultraviolet is coming from the floor and is flooding also the stairs with some red specials on the ladies. And the ladies are obviously ladies from Syracuse. So it's, I find it, you know, quite ironic, not only that the dancers from Syracuse are used here as prostitutes, it's also another lighting element that gets a variation. And from what we saw in Syracuse, we use it now in the brothel, just with a different color, with different intensities. And then we get this kind of buildings, you know, of if every tube is another room, is another woman, you get this landscape of far away tubes that are on low intensity and brighter that are feeling closer. So you are playing with the sense of depth in the space and fake depth and spaces there. This is a detail, a close-up. You can see that, and it's quite saturated red and ultraviolet, and two follow spots, very soft intensity and optical qualities with frost are escorting the two soloists, Andrew and the Madame. Yeah, in view of time, I will just run here quickly, but you can see how these are later photos of the space. I mentioned the gold of Ephesus is gradually fading, and it becomes less glamour and less attractive than it was at the beginning. It looked very beautiful and promising, but then you see how rotten this country is, yeah, how corrupt it is, and how values are hollow. They're not real. Yeah, this is another element that came as an inspiration. You know, the central light above center line are 4 or 5 sets of aircraft lamps. They are like park cans with very narrow beams of light, and they create this for me, it came like I was looking for a kind of chandelier. How could look a chandelier in such a rough space? So I looked for a central element that will look a bit royal or something, rain of beams, and it creates this grid on the floor. It comes from like 14 meters above the stage. This is how it is hanged. This photo is not what the public doesn't see this. The public doesn't see this perspective, but you can see here the 5 lines of lights above the center line. They create the grid on the floor, these dots. Yeah, and you can see also the gold splashes. And whenever they walk, the dancers are walking, then there is gold glitter out of the floor. I have to say, these are not, something is very special in this company. The dancers are actors also. They have, each one of them has a wonderful and very individual stage presence. And they are acting, basically. They're acting without words, but they are dancing and acting at the same time. And this is something that it's very rare to find in dance companies. This is, Richard is managing to get really phenomenal performers. And you can see it, I think, in some of the photos here, how their face is acting. It's not only the body. It's the face, it's the eyes. You see relationships, you see tension. They are speaking without words, without saying. Yeah, you can see all these photos that they have really a theatrical presence. Yeah, and they are exceptional movers. Yeah, look here. Look at the father and the mother on the left. And there is absolutely no overacting. Yeah, this is also, this, of course, they are extremely talented group of people, exceptional. This is one of the companies that I love working with. But Richard is directing, is not choreographing only, he's also directing. And Gregor, the dramaturg, he is a director as well. He is an actor. So this is a team that there is a lot of synergy between the members of the team, which is very, very helpful and rewarding, I feel. Yes. I suggest that each one of us will click on link number 2. This, it will be the production trailer. And then after watching this production trailer, we move on to the next project from Ballet Stuttgart. But let's first watch the trailer of Ballet Theater Basel, The Comedy of Errors. It's link number 2. The access will be to my website. You will see photos in the gallery. And at the end of the photos, if you move to the side, yeah, you will reach one video, yeah, after the photos. So please search. There are about 12 or 15 photos, stills, and then the video is there. Okay. So I'm pressing now. It's a minute and a half trailer. Okay, so I hope that everyone is back and that you enjoyed the comedy of errors. The next project that I would like to speak about will be a very different example for working with light and space. I started intentionally with something that is relating to narrative, although there is hardly language, spoken language. And in this project, Impulse, that was performed in Stuttgart Ballet, this is a very formal, more, let's say, more abstract, non-narrative piece. Yeah. With the first one, it was important to give you a glimpse into my creative process with collaborators. Yeah. And one possible way out of different ways to share ideas and to develop dramaturgy of light. And let's see what happens when we don't have a narrative, and what can dramaturgy of light be about. How do we work with what we have? Yeah, how do we bring things that are more inspired by more abstract notions like form or dynamics, like energy and tempo and relationship between different elements in the performance, rather than a narrative, because there was none here. And Impulse, it was actually one before the last piece I worked on just before the Corona crisis. The premiere was in November, end of November 2019 in Stuttgart, Germany, choreographed by Roman Novitsky, an uprising choreographer from the ballet. He's a principal soloist, and he's creating already several pieces for the company. In this case, I created scenography and lighting design together. And original music by composer Mike Strobel. He's a musician percussionist, mainly specialized with percussions, and costume design by Aliki Tsakalo, also from Stuttgart. And in this case, we were, this is just maybe to give a little taste of how the piece began. But in this space, we were looking for, the structure was 3 acts, 3 parts of the piece with different relationship between dance and music, and between the dancers and the drum player. So we were exploring the changing relationship between on one hand, we had the human movement and the movement of space. I will show which elements in the space were moving. And on the other hand, there was the journey that the music and the sound brought to the piece. So we were exploring these relationships and changing relationships in each of the 3 parts. So this is just like to give you some idea of how the space began. This is photos from the first part, yeah. And I will take you just through the process of designing the set, as I was sharing with my collaborators. So the ideas here, this is a presentation from beginning of May 2019. So in this case, we are like 6-7 months before. And I was still, there is no music, there is no movement, thinking, okay, we have a drummer on the stage playing live. We have the dancers, yeah, and all the things that I mentioned so far that we want to explore form and dynamic and energy and tempo, and there is no narrative. And how does this develop? So I was thinking, what are the elements that the music will be created with? And we knew about a drum. Eventually, Mark characterized which drum it will be, and we designed a special vehicle for it. But I was thinking, you know, okay, let's look on the forms and the elements that connect to drumming. What does it look like? So here we have all the cymbals and drums and sticks, and maybe a wall that made of cymbals. I was really exploring like possibilities and forms, special symbol, or maybe with lighting elements in them and so on. First sketches, yeah, and it didn't look at all like this at the end, but the idea of vertical lines and circles came, and here the hitting of the cymbal and the echo, this was something that did interest us. The echo, the vibration. I was looking for textures. We realized that we are actually not interested at all in something that is more earthly, tribal, and not to have a drummer which is like a shaman and dancers which are a group of believers or worshippers, but something more suggestive, something more open. And then we also thought about the black and white. Here, this was an exploration of, you know, close and open and a hole in the ceiling versus a black circle on the floor. Very heavy set. By the way, this piece had to be part of a triple bill. So it means that we share the stage with 2 more choreographers and creative teams. Therefore, the changes should be limited to about 15 minutes, maximum 20 minutes, if I remember. So anything that is heavy will require more production efforts. Then the idea of the Svobodas came to mind, also because I knew that they have quite some in theater, in the theater in Stuttgart. And then I found these photos of strings, you know, and the strings, if you look on the left side, it's a little bit like the light beam of the Svoboda buttons, right? The Svoboda on the left with 9 strings, 9 little beams, and these strings. And then I thought, okay, maybe I will create like a room with these strings. Maybe even we play with ventilation and wind a little bit, and the vibration of hitting could be maybe interesting to explore it in the walls of these strings. You see it on the right side, and then these strings, it's also possible to print on them. So I was checking these possibilities. Eventually, it was much too expensive, and also caused the strings to glue to each other a little bit. So you get maybe the right texture on the strings, how you wish, but it limits the movement. So this was something I gave up, not only because of the money, but also because of the physical limitation that it caused to the strings. And then some early sketches, you know, with beams and Svoboda buttons, lines, floor, what to do with it, how actually to encompass, to compose a space that will not be like with stage legs from the sides and a backdrop, but something that is all around, floor, 2 side walls, back, and something that can also metamorphose easily with lighting. And also later I realized with movement of lighting sculptures in the space. So here I'm back to explore the symbols idea, the walls of the symbols, the circles at the back. And this is an idea about the printing. To create white floor circle, like almost a part of a quarter, let's say almost a quarter circle on the floor, that is like melting on the walls. And wherever the floor is white, the strings that are rising will be also white strings. Yeah, and wherever the floor is black in the middle, the divide between, there the strings will be black. Yeah, so we have kind of two circular spaces that are kind of going against the logic of, you know, floor, walls, and so on. It's kind of melting in the space. And then the idea about the ring, the LED ring that will be able to move and relate to the drummer. Yeah, this we are getting there. Huh? You see still the stage legs on the sides. This is very early sketch. Stage legs on the side, one diagonal of Svobodas and one big ring of LED relating to the drummer. So basically, upstage, this was the territory, if you would like, the territory of the drummer, and the rest of the space is for the dancers, but there is different use of space in every part of the piece. 3 parts, I said. This was another idea of 3 rings, and the moving them with the flying bars or with engines and so on was dropped later. Some kind of a spiral idea, or you see, these are very quickly made sketches. These are not the technical drawings that are later going to the theater. These are just things I am doing, you know, for myself in 2-3 minutes, looking for variations. And this is already closer to what we had. We had 2 lines of Svobodas, one long, 12 meters long, and on the side, a shorter one, and the ring was above the drummer. I also have to mention that behind the back wall, there was a black opera plastic, opera folly, that is, it looks opaque. It doesn't transfer light when there is light from the front, but if you lit it from behind, it becomes more transparent. And this is something I can show in the photos here. You see on the right side at the bottom, this is the black opera plastic with backlighting. It looks like a moonlight or something, and it connects a little bit to the light of the ring, as if the ring is the source, but it's not. It's a big HMI coming from the back. If you look on the small photo up, when it's dark behind, it looks like a black backdrop, a black wall, and in front of it there are the strings. Yeah. This is the same idea, the blue light coming from the back of the opera plastic. Here are more examples of how active the space was. We had maybe 24 minutes piece, and the first part has only movement of the ring around the drummer. The ring starts as the curtain opens. It's on the floor, and the drummer is there, and the ring is slowly rising, like scanning the drummer, the musician, and slowly changes angle as if it's like opening a mouth or something. And then the 12 meters of lighting batteries that you see in these photos, they fade in slowly, and one female dancer is walking in this kind of corridor under the lighting. And later this lighting is rising, and most of the movements of the ring and the Svoboda lines were reserved for the end of the second part and the third part, which was the most rhythmical or the most energetic, maybe towards building up to the climax of the piece. And we had maybe 16 movements in total of elements, quite a lot, but it was part of the choreography. It was really working with the movement of the bodies in the space. Yeah, it really worked very well together. This is another example of more quiet moment in the third section. These objects are really heavy. Yeah, we're talking about hundreds of kilos with multi cables for power and aluminum trusses. And the trusses are silver. They are covered with black metal boards, so it doesn't look like a rock and roll set. But the truss is there. Yeah, the truss is carrying everything, and we have each line of Svobodas on 2 different fly bars, and the ring is connected to 3 flying bars. So 7 flying bars are constantly, almost, not always, but quite busy with moving throughout the piece, and slow movements. So it doesn't look like abrupt. It looks very light and floating, although it's quite a heavy construction. These are more examples. The big photo on the right is the last image from the piece before the curtain opens, with kind of a moment of meeting between the drummer at the back and the female dancer that opened the piece at the front on the right side of the photo. And then the curtain closes like a black guillotine. I suggest that we all click on the third link. Again, it will direct you to my website, to the Gallery of Impulse. And if you scroll through the photos, you can, at the end, find the film. It's a production trailer, so it's the official company trailer for this piece. And we can see it a little bit in movement, in time, in action, how it all communicated, how the relationship was between dance, music, space, light. Okay, so if you're all ready, let's give it a go. Okay. So, in view of time, I think I will be able to speak about maybe one last project, or if Nico, if you allow me just a few more minutes, maybe two. But this one is perhaps the last one, and it's a production called Dream Seekers. From China, Shenzhen Opera and Dance Theater Company. It's a new company that was established, and this show was the opening production for this company. Shenzhen is bordering almost with Hong Kong. It's the city, the center of technology in China. It's the capital of Huawei and WeChat and artificial intelligence industries and drones and et cetera, et cetera. I think 24 million inhabitants in this city. And it's a really, really interesting project that was premiered also in November 2019 in the Gun Theater of Shenzhen. I wish I had more time to speak about it, but I will have to keep it very concise. The production director and choreographer was Fei Bo, who is a house or resident artist, house choreographer of the National Ballet of China, with scripts. The narrative was written by Xu Rui, with wonderful, very, very spiritual stage design by Wang Jing. She's she's a Chinese scenographer and visual artist based in the UK, but working all around the world and a lot in China. She brought a set that is really different to the landscape of performing arts in China, much more abstract and suggestive, with video design by Tian Ji, Hu, and music composer was Liu Tong. Costume designs also great costume design by Donglin Yan. I will have to say very little, unfortunately, about this production, just in view of time, to allow you also time for questions. But the genre of this production was it's labeled, let's say, it's a Chinese modern dance drama, and the story is about 5 young protagonists, characters, who struggle to establish a new company in the emerging city of Shenzhen. And the production is a series of a sequence of group dances. Relationship is evolving through sequence of duets, trios, group sections, towards they're basically struggling to establish, to achieve their goals. And I'm saying very broadly now. It ends with a big typhoon scene, a storm, followed by a serene closure, a very quiet and relaxed kind of catharsis. Okay, this is I will just share something else here. Let me just share some images of the stage design. Rocio, if you could please open again to share. Yes, thank you, Rocio. So these are yeah. Do you all see here? Yeah, I see that you see. This is this is how the space looks at the beginning. It looks a bit like a model, a huge model of architecture. Yeah, some kind of volumes, spaces, shapes that look in kind of a landscape, abstract landscape. Very tall walls, gray floor, gray walls, and out of the walls, the performers take spaces, bring spaces out of this architectural model, boxes that come in and out. This is example of some LED stripes that were installed in the walls, and we were working really hard on actually programming the LEDs to grow like a line that is being drawn by the architect, a skyline of the city. So you start with a dot, and the dot becomes a long line, and then it breaks to the side and continues growing, and then really like drawing the city, basically. And here are just some examples. Yeah, really, it worked so well and so quickly. You were in different places. This is how the first half of the performance was set. Yeah, with a room, with a box. Now you cannot have sidelights in this production, and most of the lighting has to come from above. Yeah. But this was not a problem, and I think we did manage to find some interesting solutions. For example, you can see over here, between the proscenium and the side walls, there was a space that allowed us to build towers for moving lights, to lit the space a little bit from diagonals from the side. So these were 5 lights that were very important on each side, 10 proscenium lights in total. And then after the break, the space becomes like a intersection of 2 walls. 2 walls are clashing, creating this corner on the center line. Yeah, and the lights that you see above, they were not used all the time during the second act. We used them for several scenes. So they came in, they changed the heights, they changed angles and so on, changed colors, and they disappeared later. What brings me to the typhoon scene, when the 2 walls open slowly. It creates a lot of tension. When it's quite dark, the performers are in the front, downstage. The 2 big walls are moving to the sides, and another wall, the back wall from the first act. Yeah, this big wall is also going up. So it's like an iris or an opening, is like a rectangle that slowly becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And all these 3 walls move away, and we stay in an empty stage, empty space. And this is where the typhoon scene takes place. I will show you a film of this typhoon scene after few photos from the production. And what was very interesting in this production is that, you know, the theme of trying to, you know, you have like really hard life, like daily life is really challenging, and you are escaping to your dreams. You are escaping to your fantasies. You want to be a movie star, or you want to be a successful inventor, but I think that for some of us, I think that without talking about it too much, this escapism from reality in the context of this production, I think that it has more dimensions than just the dimensions in the narrative of the 5 people that are, you know, trying to establish a company or pursue their dreams, their goals. There was something there very in between the lines, you know. This narrative is maybe also an allegory to, that's from my perspective. Yeah? I'm not speaking here for anyone else in the team, but I feel that it's very clever how artists in China are able to tell stories in ways that, you know, there is more beyond going, like escaping after, running after your dreams to fulfill them, to make your dreams reality. And this is something that you can see in these photos. How, for example, with the video on the left up, how they are, they're in the street, but actually there are also more images that, like the right image here, of the poor life of the really stressful times. And on the left side of the same page in this presentation, you can see at the bottom how someone is going into, you know, being a musical star. And over here, you can also see how on the left, in this, under the street lamp, how there is tension, there is disappointment, there is struggle, and in other moments there is kind of, so I think this escapism has also some maybe social dimension, social criticism, I would maybe say it. And some images like the left one, that don't look like beautiful and appealing, but actually full of doubts, full of pain, full of agony. Or the right photo that at the bottom with the boxes of proletarian, of working class. Maybe the music is more cheerful, but I find it a bit Brechtian, I would say. So there is something very intelligent in the contrast between, you know, the positivity and the dream, and on the other hand, other images that the production includes. This is already a photo from the second act. As you can see, the 2 walls are clashing. Detail. Yeah, this was very strong, powerful, contemporary movement style that included also a little bit more. It was very charged. It was very, I don't know, maybe sometimes we call, or it associates to me like a bit martial art, but very emotional. These are other moments from the same act. Yeah, these are, you can see how expressive and how strong silhouettes on the left side up, for example, shadows on the boxes. On the right up, you have the shadows of these low lights, yeah, that are floating from actually hanged on steel wires, but the shadows are twisted in kind of diagonal. These are lights from the floor that illuminate in diagonals the side walls. So from the right floor, it goes to the left wall and the other way around. The shadows of the dancers on the left, it's very charged act, the second act. And you see here how it's a kind of a slow motion performance that this the woman in the red dress is given, and then the public leaves her, and it starts kind of a melancholic duet, love duet with her lover. And at the end of this duet, these purple lights slowly change into gray color. So it's a slow awakening, you know, from the fantasy back to the back to reality. Yeah, this is a photo from the beginning of the storm, of the typhoon. And then the space is more open. The sides, the walls are at the side, but they stayed at the dark. And here we have really choreography of light with the dance. This is a moment of climax with a lot of like paper, very chaotic in the air, but the dancers give everything they've got. And there was always a standing ovation at the end of this storm, because this was very accelerating section. I would like to invite you to click on link number 4. Link number 4 will again divert you to my website, and at the end of the gallery, after the photos, you can find the video. And I think, Nico, I think we will end after with this film. This is like 3 minutes, right? So I invite you to click. Let's click together now. And here we go. Okay, so thank you very much for attending. I guess, Nicolas, we have to open the session of questions and answers.
Hello, everyone. Soy Raquel de la AI. I'm Rachel from the AAE. We are going now to the questions and answers. Vamos a ir al turno de preguntas. Por favor, os pedimos que habléis despacio para dar tiempo a María a que haga la traducción. Please, we ask you to speak slow to give time, Maria, for the translation. Vamos con la primera pregunta de Laetitia Olvera. Hola, Laetitia.
Buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por la explicación. Me gustaría mucho que nos hablaras de cómo integras en este último ejemplo o cómo se integró la multimedia y la luz, o sea, el trabajo que tuviste que hacer con la artista para poder hacer un trabajo, además de integrado, comprometido con lo que querían decir los coreógrafos. Gracias.
María.
María, ¿nos escuchas? Yaron, do you hear María?
No.
Sí, te oigo.
Change to Spanish. Maybe now, María.
Vamos a intentarlo otra vez, ¿de acuerdo?
Yes, yes, great. Yes, it's a very very good question, because video is also light, and I had experiences with different designers so far. I think that the best way to work together is to think first, before we come to the theater, long in advance, what is actually going to be the role of the video. When do we use video? Because we obviously use light all the time, yeah. And as a lighting designer, I will create all the tools that I need in order to bring a certain, say, sensation or emotional impact for the show. And with the video, most of the time, the video is not on constantly. So I think that the question is, what is the function, the artistic function of video, and when do we use it? Yeah. When do we need it and what for? And then to start thinking about, colors. So we have to start speaking the same language, basically, to design together, to limit ourselves to the scale. What is the video giving? What will the light be giving? It depends very much also on where the video is being projected, because in some productions, it could be a back screen, it could be a projection from the front, it could be projection on a certain area in this scenography, and every option has different impact. relation. So yeah, I think it could be difficult when and I heard it actually so far only from one video designer, that that for this designer the video is like constantly on, and video creates also light. But then if we are two people on the same role, the same responsibility, then there might be a problem. So we need to actually divide very clearly what is the contribution of the video, who is leading, when. Sometimes the video has to lead because there are qualities that video as a medium is better than lighting, and there are other qualities that lighting as a medium qualities are better. Yeah, the light of a projector is not a very high quality light in most of the productions where I encountered video projectors. And theater lighting is far more rich in its texture. It's deeper, the colors are deeper. So video cannot really replace lighting, theater lighting, even if someone will like to. So it's really different in every project, and I think that it helps if we clarify what do we use video for, because the lighting will be always the medium that you are affecting the perception of space with, unless in a team it is decided that the project is led by video and the lighting is supportive. Yeah, that's kind of, it's a very good question. I don't have the answer, you know, because in every project there is different kind of interaction.
Thank you.
Gracias a ti, Laetitia. Vamos con la siguiente pregunta de Diego Mauricio Tafur. Adelante, Diego.
Muy buenos días. Gracias por la exposición, señor Yaron. Desde Colombia le pregunto. Cuando usted hace diseño de luces, ¿toma en cuenta el concepto del actor, del bailarín? El artista que está parado en la escena bajo la luz, ¿usted lo consulta? ¿Hace trabajo con ellos en equipo? ¿Y luego lo lleva a la escena? Gracias por responder.
Yes, I do now.
Creo que tienes que repetir la pregunta, María, Yaron, que no te escucho. María, ¿me escuchas? María.
Mm-hmm. I think that, you know, the performers, I do speak with them sometimes in some cases, but they are on stage, so they cannot see what actually you see as a designer. They don't experience a rehearsal as an outside eye. So I think that it's limited how much input, creative input, they could have, you know, because they are not watching the whole piece from outside. They are performing. But I do think it's important to speak with them when lighting conditions are more challenging. And it's important to explain them, for example, why a certain effort is worth. What's the value of what we are doing? Sometimes we give presentations to the performers at the beginning of the creative process, and we share with them, you know, the ideas, the concepts of what we are going to do on the stage, but not in the theater. In the theater, we have very limited time most of the time. Sometimes it could be a day, you know, for taking a whole show, or very, very tight schedule. Even with the creative team, in some shows, you have very short time, you know, only in the intervals, in the pausas, in the breaks, you can speak with them about what has been created, or at the end of the day about the whole day, and like exchanging. But there is a lot of conversation that has to happen in advance, not in the theater, but before. In the theater, you are more limited. You can and you should talk, but you cannot develop a whole dramaturgy of light just in the theater. All these things have to be part of the direction of the piece. No, it's part of the book. So you are creating it for many months before you are in the theater. In the theater, it's more realization, I believe, and experimentation, as much as the time allows. Yeah, but I feel that with good collaborators, you have the concepts, you know what the light needs to do. Yeah, do you remember when I brought at the beginning of the talk these six levels, from narrative to character to theme and so on? So, and I said, we artists can use this as, you know, what the light is about. And every moment I feel that I need to know what the light is about. It's more important to know what I'm trying to create with the light, rather than what the light should look like. That's a really, really important point. It's more important to discuss what kind of work, creative, poetic work, the light has to do in the show, and later to find the form, to find the aesthetics. If we know that in a certain moment we need the light to cause almost physical pain to the public, yeah, then you will find the right light to do that. But more important is to find what is the function, what kind of meaning you are trying to create, or what do you try to do to the body of the spectators, and then you find the right light. Yeah, it could be many different alternatives, but it's about the function. First, realize why I need a certain effect in the show for a certain moment. Then we find the right forms for it. So all these discussions have to be, this is the homework. Yeah, and then we are doing it in the theater. Now you see the depth of the discussion has to be so much, and also the duration of the conversation with the creative team, that when you come to the theater, most of your dialogue, I believe, will be with with the director, with the choreographer, with the designers, and the performers are usually on the stage, and they don't experience what you as a team experiences. So you know, if you're using the very precious time in the theater to discuss with someone, I think that it needs to be very, very with people who are involved and we're all part of this process. Maybe in smaller productions, the performers are more involved in the process, and in bigger productions, they are less, possibly, yeah? But again, every case is unique, and you have to find the right way to negotiate with the performers if necessary. If there is a very dark, dangerous lighting image, and you need to convince a dancer that they can jump and it will be amazing in this dark light, although it's quite dangerous, yeah, then explain them why it is important that there will be this light in this moment. Share it with them. Maybe then they follow you. You can lead them in a better way and make them feel comfortable with what they're doing. That's very important. Yes, next question.
Vamos con la siguiente pregunta, es de Alfredo Payán. ¿Nos da tiempo a hacer 2 últimas preguntas? Adelante, Alfredo.
Okay. Hola, Yaron, muchas gracias. Saludos desde Durango, México. Y a mí me gustaría saber, cuando comienzas a trabajar en un proyecto nuevo, en los primeros acercamientos que tienes con el director, ¿cuál es la información que tú le solicitas o requieres para poder comenzar con tu proceso creativo? Hablando de la iluminación.
Yes, it's one of the core, one of the most important things actually to generate the right information. So obviously there are the objective. Let's start with the easy part. The objective conditions, like how much time we will have in the theater, equipment, which are the possibilities. This is like, if we are painters, then how many colors we have, how many different brushes we have to paint the space with, or to sculpture in the space. How much time, how much personnel is there to create your vision? Is the project staying in one place, or is it touring? Because if it's touring, it means more complications that you have to know about the other venues, and if it's different countries, maybe there are more restrictions. Every country has different way of working. For example, projects in the Netherlands, where I'm based, almost all the companies have to travel, and they arrive at the theater at 9 a.m. in the morning, and they start quickly building the stage, the lighting, and on the same day in the afternoon they have a rehearsal and a show in the evening. So you basically have to plan stage design and lighting design that can tour and be built in one day. Yeah, and it could be that the next day they're already in a different city. So there is a limit how much you can put, you know, on a company. In other countries, there is a repertory system, which means that the theater is showing shows, old shows that they have in the program. They are rehearsing new shows. They are making technical rehearsals for shows that are just about to come. And then you have, you know, like you have a schedule when you make these shows in such places. You know, I was in Mexico. You also have this cheese with a lot of holes in it. Yeah, you have this cheese with it's not like a block. It's in 2 weeks, but you have a break. You have half a day here, and you have a couple of hours there. And sometimes you are coming just for half-hour rehearsal, and then someone else is rehearsing. So you have to plan your, you know, how complicated your design will be if this is the the theater. You know, it's like a factory. It's an industry. Yeah, and in 2 weeks, and with a lot of breaks. Every country, every theater has different conditions, so you have to know this in advance. Now, these are things that you don't have so much control on, but what you do have more influence on, in my opinion, is your involvement with the other artists. And here, the earlier you begin the creative process, the more chance you have to develop something really deep in the production and give design a more important role, creative role. You can even bring ideas that inspire the whole team if it's early enough. You don't only follow what the other artists bring. Yeah. And if you are having the material, the play, the text, or if it's a book that is being staged, literature work, if it's not drama, or dance, you know, if you are speaking about the ideas in advance and you bring visual inspiration, you know, like the film, the first film you saw, 8 months before premiere, there are no steps, there is no music, but well, some of the music was, but you bring, you know, possibilities. You put things on the table, and you can say, this is interesting, this is not. You hear feedback from your partners. So the process is not limited to the 2 weeks in the theater, or the week in the theater, or a day in the theater, but you know what you are working towards. So the earlier you are involved with a project, the better. And it's really about the partnership with other people, and the conversation, and talk, and exchange images and ideas, and what it is about. You know, it's not so helpful for me to get a proposal from a director or choreographer. Maybe we can try the side light, or maybe a little bit brighter, or more face, because it's much more complicated than that. And I would rather speaking about what is the kind of atmosphere, or what is the emotion, or what is the energy that we are trying to create in that moment. Basically, you as a designer and a director or a playwright go, you know, under the skin to what the piece is coming from. You know, go to the source, go to the origin, what it is about, and how do we make it, and what kind of tempo, or what kind of energy, what, you know, it's speaking very, very abstractly on things, and then you build it. And it's really important that you know every image that you create, what this image is about. Why do you need to change an image? Why certain elements? Why color? Why shadow? Why contrast? How much to expose? What is the proportion between the space and the performer? What is the relationship between all the elements? I tell you all another thing. When I studied a PhD in a university, it made me a better designer. To study, to read about performance studies, to understand how dramaturgy works, it makes you aware to many more possibilities. It definitely learning, researching, learning about the work of others makes us better artists, more interesting theater people. And the most interesting collaborations is when you are speaking all with artists, and we are all interested in talking about the art, not about the technology necessarily. The technology is the vehicle, is the agent. It's not the content. Yeah, it's a very good question that you, Alfredo, that you brought, and this is this is a subject that we can talk about, you know, for days. So I hope that it gives some kind of idea.
Muy bien, muchas gracias. Vamos con la última pregunta. Teníamos a Paco Bragado, pero se ha retirado, así que vamos con Alonso López. Hola, Alonso.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Saludos desde Chihuahua. Pues yo quisiera aportar un poco y que nos compartiera qué habilidades técnicas, cognitivas debe tener un diseñador para desarrollar pues el trabajo, ¿no? O sea, qué habilidades debe tener y desarrollar para lograr el trabajo como diseñador y como operativo de iluminación.
Can you maybe explain a little bit more the question? Because I hear several questions in this question.
Ok, pues como en relación ahorita que decían, la tecnología es el medio y no el contenido. Digamos, pues sí, un diseñador debe de trabajar con el conjunto del equipo. Entonces, por ende, pues debe de saber, digamos, de ritmo, pues de psicología, incluso, todos estos aspectos que pueden aportar a la creación.
I don't think that there are specific fields that are like, no, I will answer it differently. I think that every artist comes with a different perspectives about art and has different knowledge and different life experience and learned different things. And this is what makes art so rich and diverse. And this is what makes art also so interesting. So I don't think that there is a kind of a checklist that an artist needs to learn, because you can come to art from many different directions. For example, I have in mind when you ask about psychology, there is a very interesting Flemish theater director from Belgium called Guy Cassiers. He's the artistic director of the Toneel-huis, the theater, city theater in Antwerp in Belgium. And Guy made very innovative theater work when he actually still does, but he started almost 20 years ago in the Netherlands. He comes with very interesting background of psychology studies and graphic design, and quite late in his life he started with theater, and he directs pieces of theater where video is quite dominant, but the use of video not only as by the aesthetics of it, but in I'm talking about the dramaturgical role that video has. The video represents inner dimensions of characters, or affects tempo, or affects subconsciously the emotions of spectators, and many different possible goals that he's using the video to fill in with. And he comes from graphic design and psychology into theater direction. In my case, it started with visual art, painting, sculpture, drawing, and then I was going to work as, you know, lighting technician in rental companies, not so much artistic work, but more commercial project that you come in the morning, you have a performance in the night, you have to have quick solutions, quick design proposals for clients, yeah, directors, clients. You have the same day rehearsal and you make the show. It's commercial. And then I went to study theater, theater studies with dramaturgy and how to analyze performance and analyze a text, and how to bring text to the stage, and architecture, a little bit of musicology, different subjects, you know, introductions courses. Then I went to study scenography, which is different than stage design. Scenography relates to a performance space in a more like an installation, more like autonomous from the text. And it was really interesting also for me to think about light in that way. And then it led me to research in the State University of Groningen and write a PhD about what's new with lighting design. For me, this research informed me, and you know, my instincts are, I'm aware to many things at the same time, and I'm like choosing based on a lot of questions. I'm asking myself a lot of questions. So, you know, Guy is coming from the psychology and graphic design, and he makes the psychological videos, and I'm coming from visual art and light art and sculpture, and give the light, you know, a role like more like a performer. And you, we don't know each other, but you come from different backgrounds, and you bring the things you are best in. So I think just to learn more and to see more and be inspired by more and read and see, so the more the better. And again, the process is important. I used to work in my youth, you know, as commercial lighting designer with clients, but I don't want to work like this anymore. So for me, the most the biggest present is to work with artists, as you know, the more the better. I'm doing less projects per year, but I dedicate much more time for every project. Yeah, so it's just like, I think the point is that the process is the most important.
Thank you so much, Jaron. I think that was the last question. Muchísimas gracias a todos los asistentes y participantes en Zoom y en Facebook Live. Fue una masterclass maravillosa y les recuerdo que va a estar en nuestro canal de YouTube con la traducción español. María, muchísimas gracias por la traducción. And Jaron, and if you can hear me, thank you so much for this amazing 2 hours, for sharing your experience with lighting, for your advices, and on behalf
of— Thank you all for being here and bearing it.
No, it's amazing. On behalf of the IOE, we thank you, and we hope to see you all at the theater. And if you want to say goodbye.
Yes, I you know, something I would like to just maybe conclude in view of the period where we are experiencing at the moment. There are a lot of talks about the theater of the future and what should be the theater of the future, and maybe the performances need to be outside, or that there will be less technical means or time for theater. And it's a bit depressing to hear all these kind of severe, heavy prophecies about the future of performing arts. I feel we have to keep the optimism, and I don't think that we are going to need now to reinvent all the theater culture and to renovate the traditions. Definitely to keep on searching new forms in the performing arts, but not out of the fear of the moment. There was the Spanish flu just a little bit more than 100 years ago, and we returned to the same theater buildings, not only to these theater buildings, but to these forms. And I think that this Corona crisis, this is something that will pass, and we have to find a way to get again confidence of public to come and see theater. This will take time. Hopefully, when sports will open to mass public, or when people will dare to fly again, they will come again to the theater, and then we will be able to keep on creating and show our creativity and inspiration to large publics. So yeah, just to keep the high spirits or keep the spirit high.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias a todos y a nuestros patrocinadores, María de nuevo, y hasta la próxima. Gracias.